Get the cream, precious metals or the crypto things. Your bars are light like the one that's on a Smith machine. But my Maxwell and I ain't speaking about the pretty wings. Watch a potty.
Let's talk about Wrestlemania Night 1, April the 6th, 2024. The Bloodline, Roman Reigns and The Rock defeated Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins in the main event. And let's get right into it. Let's start with Roman Reigns and The Rock defeating Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. For starters, this match was over 40 minutes when you count entrances, of course. There was crowd brawling, there was tables breaking, there was barricades being knocked down. Roman Reigns put somebody in a one-leg Boston Crab. The Rock put Seth Rollins in a sharpshooter. They worked slow, then they picked up the pace, and then they worked slow. They mixed some interesting spots in. I'll say that the match was good. It was a little slow because Roman and The Rock are not trying to get too blown up, and The Rock's not trying to hurt himself. So it clearly wasn't, the pace that they normally people would have cut in terms of a tag team match at a big show like this. But Roman and The Rock are going to take their time. They're big stars, A+ aesthetics, A+ charisma, A+ presence. Yeah, these guys can do whatever they want. I think The Rock he didn't do bad for himself. He sold well, as usual, which is, the core of wrestling. He took some bumps, actually. Him and Roman both bumped more than I thought they would, if we're being honest. So it was fairly solid. There was a point in the match where, Roman speared The Rock, and The Rock sold the hell out of it. It looked phenomenal. It seemed like they were going to lead that into the finish, but they continued after that. And the crowd was up for that. So the crowd was kind of in and out. They had their complaints all night. We'll talk about that stuff later. The crowd was up and down, but the Rock became infatuated with Mama Rhodes about 30 minutes into the match, and he got the weight belt. And the weight belt actually ended up being into the finish as Cody is about to use the crossroads on Roman, and The Rock smashed him across the back with the weight belt. He gets speared. The Rock tags back in. Rock bottom. People's elbow. 1, 2, 3. The Rock pins Cody Rhodes. It was phenomenal. Okay. The Rock pinning Cody was great. Cody was not as popular at this show as people would have hoped, especially if I would have hoped. It was a bloodline show. People were down for Roman and The Rock. That's who they wanted to win. That's who won. So that was okay. Seth Rollins did his part. He was the babyface in peril. Sold his leg very well. Speared through the barricade so he couldn't stop that Cody loss. He looked at Cody with kind of some disgust when Cody was beat. And Cody was dour when he lost. So they're telling the story. Cody has now got the table stacked against him tomorrow night, and it's nobody's fault but his own because he was the one who lost. So this is fine. This is good. I don't really have too much complaint about it, except for the pace being a little slow and the match being a little long. I think they probably could have chopped 15 minutes out of this match and picked up the pace a little bit, but I understand why they did what they did. This is what the crowd came to see, so they had it on for a long time. So tomorrow night is Bloodline Rules. Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns. It's going to be Bloodline guys everywhere. Got to give Roman the utmost credit for going out there and actually putting in a lot of work. This is probably the most work Roman Reigns has did in a long time. Even in singles matches, Roman Reigns rarely does this much work. But he had to be the workhorse for his team. And Rollins, of course, was the workhorse for his team. And I liked when Roman got busted open, he started bleeding. He started actually selling it, actually having a visceral, visible reaction to being busted open. And he played into it. One thing I wish would have happened more was Roman talking. Like, Roman talking to his opponents is something that is extremely beneficial to the match, especially when he's working at a slow pace. Him jaw jacking, He didn't do a lot of that here. He did some, but he didn't do a lot. And I think the match was harmed by that because the crowd is now looking for that kind of interaction, and they didn't really get it this time. Cody countering the people's elbow, he got booed. Man, tough crowd that Philly, huh? Even though it's mostly a mix of casuals and Philly residents and that kind of thing. That also will be an important thing later, is that you can't play to the hometown crowd when you are courting an international audience for WrestleMania. If this was like a regular Raw or something, sure. But playing to the hometown crowd at WrestleMania, where people are flying in from other countries and people are coming from like Buffalo, New York, or people are coming from Canada, they have no idea who your Philadelphia Eagles are, for the record. I know that was a Nick Khan call, by the way. I was so frustrated by that. I'll get there in a second. Anyway, Rock and Roman worked well together. The match was fine. I have no complaints. None. Except for the match maybe being too long. And Cody was the right person to take the pin. Seth is the champion. Rock has a belt that he got from Muhammad Ali's wife. And he's just rocking that joint. Like he's rocking it. He's got the belt. It's a beautiful belt. It's much better than the Brahma Bull belt he had back in the Attitude Era. That joint was kind of ugly. This one actually looks pretty sweet. I'm wondering what he's going to do with it. Like, you don't introduce something like that unless it's for a reason. So something tells me that he's going to have to defend that belt eventually. And that might be interesting. Having somebody as the people's champion in WWE. We got enough belts as it is. I understand. But it could be something unofficial like that BMF belt in UFC. Or like the TNT, not the TNT title, I'm sorry, the FTW title in AEW. Or like the old $1 Million Championship. It could be one of those things where it's used for status, not necessarily as a traveling championship that's going to be defended at house shows and everything, right? So, I liked it. I thought the main event worked. Co-main event of the evening, Sami Zayn wins the Intercontinental Championship over the Ring General Gunther. It's at this point where you notice that there was not a lot of big entrances on this show. A lot of the entrances was toned down, way, way down. The fact that Sami Zayn got a very special entrance, but it wasn't a big WrestleMania entrance. It was cinematic. He's backstage with his family, his wife, and his son. He's talking to them. He's kissing his son. He's walking through the back. He comes into contact with Chad Gable. He finds out that Gable's not going to the ring with them. Gable believes in him. His wife believes in him. Son believes in him. Chad Gable believes in him. He's walking. It's one continuous shot, no cuts. And then you get to Kevin Owens, who meets him at the right before he goes through the curtain. And they hug, and kind of non-verbally, Kevin Owens affirms that he believes in Sami Zayn. And then we get to the match. No special entrance at all for Gunther. Not even a special Ludwig Kaiser entrance. Like, it was just bland. It was like a regular entrance for a regular match. Now, the match is getting rave reviews online because everybody loves Sami Zayn and Gunther and think they work very well together, and they do. My problem with this match was it was very uncharacteristic for Gunther, who is a man with a killer instinct, to be powerbombing Sami Zayn in the middle of the ring and just walking away from him. Giving him a big top rope splash and just walks away. He's not a cocky, Rob Van Dam-like fate, character. Yes, I know that he's trying to prolong the torture of Sami Zayn, and he's trying to mock Sami Zayn's family, and he's talking to his wife, and he's doing all this. I get that, but that's not Gunther's character. Gunther's character has always been very much a freight train. He wins as soon as he possibly can to get the hell out of there. It's never been whatever this is. So this seems to me like it was just this part of his character was tossed in there just to create a weakness so that he could lose. And okay, but this power of friendship thing they did with Sami Zayn was kind of It was anticlimactic too when he won. Now, the turnbuckle brainbuster, I like that spot. I thought it was great. The haluva kicks to the finish, I thought were kind of anticlimactic. Okay, Gunther is probably going to move forward to the main event, and this is technically dropping the belt to Sami Zayn, who is an undercard, well, lower card babyface. Gunther was done. He didn't really need to do anything with the belt anymore. I agree. Sami winning it is fine. It should have been Chad Gable. From Chad Gable's comments earlier, that seems to be the direction that they're going in. Sami Zayn owes Chad Gable a favor. That's going to be the favor. He's going to want a title match. All right, so Sami did it. He proved that he could win the big one, even though this is like his 4th Intercontinental Championship run, which kind of defeats the purpose. But then again, we're erasing all of history anyway. All of history needs to be erased or smudged and recreated in Triple H's image. The God Almighty Triple H, by the way. We'll get to that too. I'm very pissed off about that as well. But I didn't like that Gunther was all of a sudden powerbombing Sami Zayn and chopping him and just leaving him, just letting him lay there. And letting Sami Zayn flop around and power himself up and everything. Like, that doesn't feel like something Gunther would do. But overall, I think the match was very simple. Good story. Sami winning is fine. Gunther had the belt long enough. And all right, let's move on. So the women, they had the 6-woman tag match. Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi defeat Damage Control. I want to talk about how much I love Asuka. I could talk about Asuka all night. I love me some Asuka. She looks phenomenal. I saw a picture of Asuka at the Hall of Fame. She's gorgeous. She's in her 40s, for God's sake. And she's out there just killing it. She looks great. And she's tremendous. And she's professional. Even though she's working with all these green people. And she has all this experience. You could tell that she's just happy to be there, and she's willing to do whatever it takes because they take her seriously. Damage Control losing is like, so what? They don't lose anything for losing a 6-woman tag, and plus Dakota Kai was the one who got pinned. Jade Cargill, she came out with the short hair this time. Okay. Her moveset and movements in general don't seem to be that much improved from her time in AEW. But there is some improvement. And certainly presentation matters a lot in WWE. I wasn't a big fan of the entrance that they had. When they were in the dark, that was great. When they started doing the individual entrances, I was kind of like, I don't know. But having Bianca be the one that walks them to the ring with her thing playing, I think that was great. Bianca was, of course, fantastic. She's phenomenal. Her and Asuka can do no wrong in my book. I'm gonna break some news right now. If you were to say MongoSlade, who is your favorite wrestler today, right now, today, I would say Bianca Belair, easily, without question. She looks like she's serious. When she's on, she's on. Her promos need some work, but she has good promos, and she's gorgeous. She doesn't do anything that's too cringe, and as far as somebody who takes their craft seriously and got good really fast, Bianca's top tier in my book. Naomi's not bad. Of course, she was the babyface in peril in this match due to being the smaller of the 3. I'm not a big fan of her Bubba Ray Dudley booty buster move that she did to Kairi Sane after Asuka spit mist in her face. I was like, okay. But this match was less than 10 minutes. It was pretty predictable. It was all build up to get tag Jade Cargill in so she could do her big stuff and hit her big move and win, which is exactly what happened. They didn't overexpose Jade too much, so can't complain. What people have been complaining about, however, is the Wingstop controversy. I know you guys have seen it. They had a Wingstop ad during this match. It was sponsored by Wingstop, and oh my God, somebody committed a racism because of black women and Wingstop. It's, who cares? Ultimately, I think what we're dealing with here is that there are some miserable people online. I'm talking some really miserable people who spend most of their day, especially when they don't like somebody or don't like something, mining for trouble. And people who are looking at this Wingstop thing and just mining for drama, oh, why the black women gotta have the match, but for Wingstop? It's like, so what? Do you think do they not eat Wingstop? Black women don't eat chicken wings? Like, who cares? You're looking for something at that point. This is one of those things, like a microaggression is what they called it. And I know what that word actually means, and it doesn't mean anything actually. But what happens is when you're not racist, you do things that other people think is racist. And that's called a microaggression. Now, I know that's not the technical definition that you probably have read in all of your textbooks about what a microaggression is, but that's essentially what it is. It's you treat everybody like they're perfectly normal without paying attention to their race too much. And then people tell you that you're supposed to pay attention to their race. You ask somebody, hey, where are you from? You got an interesting accent. Oh, how dare you? That's a microaggression. You can't ask me where I'm from. Why are you assuming that just because I speak patois that I'm not from South Carolina? It's like, yeah, because not a lot of motherfuckers in South Carolina speaking patois. All right? Where are you from, man? You from Jamaica? What part? I'm interested. Just being interested in what people are is a microaggression. Oh, wait a minute. You speaking Spanish? What kind of Spanish is that? Is that a Puerto Rican Spanish? Is that Mexican Spanish? Is that Spain Spanish? Is it like that weird Latin American Spanish that's kind of part Portuguese? Whoa, 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 whoa. You asking very personal questions there, bruh. You're committing a microaggression. Now it's about chicken wings. Chicken wings. You got Popeye's chicken commercials that got black women all up and through that bitch. Nobody said anything about racism. You have a Wingstop ad. They didn't have the girls interacting with chicken wings or hitting each other in the head with chicken wings or anything like that. It was just a match promoted by Wingstop. That's all it was. And people are like, we gotta talk about this. I have to get on my soapbox. And I'm like, shut your ass. Shut up. Nobody cares about this, man. You think Bianca and Naomi and Jade Cargill didn't see that and didn't know that their match was going to be sponsored by Wingstop? They didn't give a shit. Nobody cares. And I want you to boycott Popeyes. Every time I see that country-ass black woman in that commercial, love that chicken from Popeyes, I don't see you Negroes do nothing. You don't say nothing. I saw Jerry Rice wearing a chicken helmet. Like a helmet with like a chicken wing on it. Well, I did see people complain about that, to be fair. To be fair, people complained about that. But you're not going to stop black people from being associated with chicken. All right? Niggas love chicken. That's all I'm going to say. We got a double dose of that nonsense, too. When Dominic Mysterio and Santos Escobar wrestled Rey Mysterio and Andrade in a tag team match, the match was promoted by some kind of Mexican drink. I forget. I think it was Aqua Frescas or something like that. And people were like, that's a racism. Why? Why is this happening? Why? And it's like, so what? Rey Mysterio always gets these weird Mexican sponsorships and promotions because he's such a big star in that country. So, yeah, they associate him with things that are Spanish or in Spanish or whatever. And it's never been a big deal until now, apparently. Now it's a big deal that some Mexican or Spanish-speaking liquid of some sort, I'm not even sure what it is, wants to sponsor Rey Mysterio's match, and all of a sudden, it's a racism, it's a microaggression. Will somebody please think of the undocumented immigrants? No, we won't. Everybody in this situation is some version of Latino. They're okay with it. It's over. It's done for. When they go to Mexico and everything is in Spanish, do you think they should be offended? No. So it doesn't matter. Okay. It's over. What does piss me off, however, is you had two gigantic guys in Rey Mysterio masks. I have no idea who these people are. They jumped the barricade. They attacked Dominic, throwing him into the ring post. And I'm like, what on earth is going on here? And even like, I think like Carlito and everybody's like, who are these people? They take the masks off and it's football players. And everybody's like, oh, this is the guy, offensive tackle or whatever from the Philadelphia Eagles. And The crowd is like, what? Who? Why are you here? What are you doing? This was a terrible, terrible celebrity involvement. For starters, these guys, nobody's ever seen these people before. These guys are in no way related to Rey Mysterio. In no way. He hasn't done a vignette with them. He hasn't had a conversation with them. He didn't dap them up outside the ring. And then, so Michael Cole can talk about them. There was no integration at all between these football players and Rey Mysterio. And then they just jumped the barricade. See, this is what I mean by corporate stuff. Nick Khan and all his buddies and all these Silver Lake guys, these Endeavor dudes, they realized, Vince McMahon used to always have celebrities involved with these matches, so it's okay for us to do celebrity involvement. Okay, as a wrestling fan, as a WWE fan, I recognize that. A-OK, give you a big thumbs up. But it can't be random. It can't just be random offensive lineman for the local team jumps the barricade and helps Rey Mysterio. It's like, what? Why? Why would you do? Why is that happening? And then it didn't get the pop that everybody thought it would get, because not everybody there is an Eagles fan, and they're football players. Football players wear helmets. Nobody knows who these people are. Nobody knows. He takes his mask off. He's like, yeah. And everybody else is like, huh? Who's this big ass Ned in the middle of the ring? Get your big ass out of the way. I came to see Ray. I don't want to see big ass Ted. Get out of here. Who is this guy? I don't know what his name is. All I know is he's the brother of the guy who's fucking Taylor Swift. That's the only thing I know. Why is he in the middle of WrestleMania? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Why is he here? With no interaction with the company or with the stars in the company at all, period. It was real stupid. I think personally it ruined the match. Even from a storytelling perspective, why is there 40,000 baby faces against these 5 or 6 heels? These two gigantic people come out of nowhere, and to give not only the numeric advantage, but the size advantage to the baby faces, and they physically involve themselves by throwing Dominic Mysterio into the ring post and cost him the match. That's crazy. That is bad psychology. So all of this is just a disaster. All right. The match itself was fine. Joaquin Wilde, they tried to do the catapult thing for him. It worked in NXT. He did it really, really well. It looked phenomenal in NXT when they did the Joaquin Wilde catapult thing. It looked okay in this match. He didn't get as much air. He didn't go as far. It looked okay. You can tell they was trying to manufacture a WrestleMania moment there. Other than that, it was fine. Dominic didn't really do a great job of catching Andrade, but that's just Dominic being Dominic. He's almost like The Miz when it comes to not really catching guys. But overall, it was a solid enough match where they completely botched the finish, and I don't understand why they did that. But I guess we have to sit around and talk about how they ruined the match because of Mexican swamp water juice or whatever the fuck commercial they played. Who cares? Jimmy versus Jay. Jay is welcomed to the ring by Lil Wayne, whose new song is apparently a milli. And that song is about what? Would you say 15 years old? Maybe 17? They say he's going to have a new song. What? There is no new song. He just did the first couple bars of a milli. And then Jay, it seemed like he was botching it because Lil Wayne is terrible at remembering his own lyrics, which is partially not writing lyrics down. Secondly, it's kind of the drugs and different things that he's been doing, because you would think he's been performing songs like Amelia, whatever, forever. But as Lil Wayne ages, he constantly forgets his own lyrics. And it's weird because other people who don't write lyrics don't forget their own lyrics, but Lil Wayne does. And he performs these songs all the time. So he was out there very tiny, kind of sounded like he was about to botch the rest of Amelie. And then Jey Uso's theme song played. Then it had a really good entrance with Lil Wayne bopping to the ring with Jey Uso. It was fun. I like that. That's where the fun stopped. That's when the fun stopped. Because Jimmy and Jay then proceeded to go out there and super kick each other 900 times. I was so pissed off by the time this match was over. These guys had a great video package where they used their real names and talk about their real birthday. They born 10 minutes apart. You know, this competition between the two of them and the brotherhood and all this kind of stuff. And that was fantastic. And then they go out there and they have this match. And it's a lot of storytelling and you know, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to actual moves like intensity and things like that, there was none. I don't know. This was that Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole battle rap shit, where these guys want to make sure they're friends at the end of this, so they're not really going hard. And we need like street dudes who don't care about your life. That's what we need. In this kind of situation, when you guys have been building this up for 38 years, we really need to get to the Beanie Siegel Jadakiss kind of match. That's what you needed to have. And you're not capable of having that kind of match. You know, that kind of street beef. You're not capable of that because it's your brother and you love him. So you want to say mean things about him. You want to kick him in the face 100 times. But I got to see you at Thanksgiving. You know, we got a birthday coming up. You know, what's going to happen? You know, where are we going to hang out? You're going to come to the barbecue. We just spent Easter together. You know, that kind of stuff. So they went out there and stunk up the joint, put everybody to sleep. And it was a disaster. This was the worst match on the show. Easily, of the brother versus brother series at WrestleMania, this is easily the worst. As of right now, of course, that could be recency bias. I could watch Matt versus Jeff tomorrow and decide that was worse. But at least Matt and Jeff had different moves. Jimmy and Jay is like, you know, if you play Mortal Kombat and you and your opponent both picked Sub-Zero, you couldn't use the same moves more than these two guys basically used the same goddamn moves. It was incredibly frustrating. It was a terrible match. And we're all dumber for having watched it. But Jey Uso had a cool-ass entrance because he got to hang out with Lil Wayne. And Jey Uso is everybody's drunk cousin. So that works. The six-pack ladder match took place second on the show. A-Town Down Under snatched down the tag team championships for SmackDown, while Awesome Truth pulled down the tag team titles for Raw. They now have officially split up those tag team belts. That was pretty much a given from the beginning. Damian Priest came out there. He had braids, and he looked like Janet Jackson for Poetic Justice. Everybody keeps calling him the bisexual Undertaker. And with all these weird colors and stuff in his hair, I'm starting to buy into the gimmick. Those allegations are sticking. That shit is like Velcro. All right? It's sticking. The DIY as DX stuff was absolute certified high grade cringe. I wanted to walk away from the TV. It was so bad. It was so bad. And those guys got no reaction. Even with the DX effects and all that, no reaction. Nobody cared. And the production team kept botching who was coming out next. So that there kept being like switches of the videos or whatever, like the new Catch Republic. Their thing kept switching back and forth with like Awesome Truth or whatever. So there was some production flubs that Vince had a fit over on this joint. But Austin Theory and Grayson Waller winning. I was surprised because they've been treated like shit for weeks. But they worked the match in a way where once they won, they got killed. So Grayson Waller got powerbombed through a table immediately. I mean, I'm sorry, not through a table, but through a ladder. Pretty much immediately and got wiped out. So his team couldn't win both sets of belts. Awesome Truth, R-Truth needed to be tagged into the ladder match, which is, you know, R-Truth favorite. R-Truth got a big moment. He climbed the ladder, got the belts for his team. It got a big pop. This match was a popcorn match. It got everything that they wanted out of this match. Johnny Gargano, DDT, Tyler Bate not Tyler Bate, but like Pete Dunne through a table. They did a lot of spots, but you know, these ladder matches, they run hot and cold with me. It's entirely too many people to follow. The New Day is completely pointless. I talked about it. I don't like most of the people in this match. It is what it is, but they now have split up those tag team titles, which everybody wanted. So now it's finally here. The first match on the show, Rhea Ripley defeated Becky Lynch performs with over 100 temperature and strep throat. And it was a good match, I think. I don't think it was great. Clearly it's not the end of their feud. It's just the beginning. But it's a good match. It was a good opener. Rhea looked fantastic. Becky looked okay. She looked unhappy for whatever reason. And of course she looks painfully skinny and, but that's just kind of normal for Becky Lynch in this day and age, is that she just looks skinny. And so the Riptide onto the turnbuckle leads to the Riptide in the ring. And Rhea Ripley wins. Good call for Rhea Ripley to go over. I knew she was going over anyway, but it was just nice to see that officially done. Becky Lynch, I give her some credit. She performed apparently sick, which is, real trooper stuff, because we kept hearing about how cold it was. We're going to talk about that in a second. But have her performing with strep throat and 100 temperature, got to give her credit, but she's no Michael Jordan. That sounds like it's just going to be a really good excuse for her to lose, is that she had strep throat and 100-degree temperature. So on Raw, she got a good excuse to why she lost and why she might deserve a rematch. But it was a good win for Rhea Ripley. Her loss was never really in question, but I think it was a fairly solid match. Now let's get to some of the other ancillary issues around WrestleMania. Now that we went through the results, let's talk about No America the Beautiful. This seems like one of those things where it's change for change's sake. Look, I don't have a problem with the national anthem. I don't really mind that. But the WrestleMania tradition is America the Beautiful. Why did that need to be changed? Is there any good reason why you would have 39 years of America the Beautiful and then have the national anthem? Is there any good reason for it? Other than we just have to be different from what Vince is doing. There's just no reason for that. If you want to have change, okay, some things need to change. The camera work changed, the production style, that stuff changed. Okay, that's a sensible change. I like that. You got rid of Kevin Dunn, you brought in a new guy, he's doing stuff different. Okay. But not have America the Beautiful. They're going to be having Lift Every Voice and Sing within the next 5 years. Guarantee it. You heard it here first. Because they're just changing stuff just to change it. It literally doesn't make sense for you to not do America the Beautiful at WrestleMania, which is the only major sporting event that does America the Beautiful. That is what made it different. Everybody does the national anthem, and then people started doing Lift Every Voice and Sing alongside the national anthem. But WWE were the only ones doing America the Beautiful. They were the only ones doing that. And now they're just like every other sports team. That's probably another Nick Khan call. Why don't we just play the national anthem? Every football team does it. It's like, because you're not a football team. All right. I know Nick Khan is just, these guys, man, they just corporate dudes. They have no conception of why your brand should be different. This also goes with all the fucking weather updates we kept getting. You got Michael Cole turned into a weatherman every 10 minutes. It's 59 degrees here in Philadelphia, but with the wind chill, it feels like 42. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about how cold it is in Philadelphia. Stop telling me about the weather in Philadelphia. I don't care. And then people started giving me that excuse. Oh, the crowd's not responding because it's cold. So the show, they was cold, man. They're out there in hoodies, man. They're wearing jackets. I'm like, the NFL has had outdoor games for 50 years and people never sat on their hands the whole time. And it got nothing to do with it being cold. It got everything to do with this show sucks. That's why people were sitting on their hands. Not because it's cold outside. It was just a little bit chilly. It was 50 something. It wasn't like below zero. I've watched football games where it was snow on the ground, where the fans are covered in snow or they're covered in rain, and they're still standing up cheering and clapping for a football game because they're that invested in it. Certain parts of this show, people got so invested in the show, they stood up and clapped. They didn't care how cold it was. They still threw up the ones for the bloodline and all that kind of stuff. They still got involved with the Jey Uso bop. It's not just because it was cold. All right? It's because they were uninterested. Which, happens. These things happen. There's lulls in the match, in the shows. And people are not that interested in everything. Okay, it's all right. But if Nick Khan's going to turn this thing into like a regular sporting event where we're going to start talking about the weather and the wind chill, he can keep all that. I don't need that. I don't care about what the weather is. And I don't think anybody who's viewing this product cares whether the fans are cold or not. Focus on what's going on in the ring, or at least talk about the stories in the ring or something. You're talking about the goddamn weather. I don't care about that. So I'm just floored by that they spent so much time talking about how cold it was, giving you an update. I'm in Detroit. It's chilly outside in Detroit. All right. Thank you for telling me that. Nick Khan is not a big fan of outdoor stadiums. He has let that be known. He said that this one was the last of the deals that was done before he took over, before he was even brought into WWE. And they've been talking with Minnesota to have WrestleMania there. And they're certainly not about to have Minnesota WrestleMania outside, because that's not going to work. So it's probably going to be indoors from now on. But I don't think it will make a big difference. When you have crowds that are that large, there's going to be, and then of course it's also outside, you're going to lose a lot of the reactions. Some people are not going to be able to see because there's so many people there. So they can't see the ring, so they're probably watching like Trons and monitors and stuff. And then you're also going to have people who are reacting, but you can't hear them because they're so far away and the sound is going upwards. Because that's always been the thing with a stadium, is the sound goes up because that's where sound goes. And you lose it when it's an open stadium. You lose the sound. So you lose a lot of the crowd reaction, a lot of the crowd energy. And that can be a negative. But the outside effect of WrestleMania, it's aesthetically pleasing to see the big open stadium with all the people in it and everything. It looks cool. But it could look just as cool with the stadium closed. Another thing that I noticed is Triple H having the fans sit in the dark. Now, this was one of the things that you would have to know just a little bit about wrestling to know in the past. Like, if you've ever seen footage of like Mid-South Wrestlings, they would have Superdome shows in New Orleans, right? And they would show footage and it would be dark. Like, the crowd would be dark. The ring would have the lights on, but the crowd would be dark. And one of the things that it was noted when Vince McMahon Jr. took over is the first thing he did was he turned the lights on. So that incentivized people to bring signs, to cheer, to do all that kind of stuff, because the crowd was going to be panned so that you could see all the people. And so the crowd had to be lit. When you watched WrestleMania on this show, it was dark. Like, there was times where there was lights on the ring, but it was dark everywhere else. So you couldn't see all the people. It looked like you were watching Rampage for a little bit. And it was like, why would you do that? Why would you make the show look smaller by darkening the crowd? Again, that's a change for change's sake. It doesn't work. And then why would you do that for WrestleMania? I think they've been doing it for Raw too. Stop. Leave the lights on. Turn the lights off if you don't have enough people there. Leave the lights on when you have all the people there, okay? You got all the people. They've got signs and things. Like, they turn the lights on for the entrances, and they turn the lights on when the match is over. They turn the lights on. That's kind of what they do at house shows, right? Turn the light on, turn the light off. So when the lights are on, you can see the signs and everything. But during the match, you can't see any of that stuff. And it's weird. Like, don't do that. Like, leave the lights on. It's okay. We need to be able to see the people too, to help with that energy. So that we can see people reacting, even if we can't hear them. That way we'll know people are at least enjoying the show, even if we can't hear it because the sound is not hitting the mics or it's going upwards and it's not, in the stadium and roaring and everything. But we could see it. We could physically see them having fun. Like, the lights would come up when the match is over. That's when we get to see the beach ball going back and forth after the tag team championship match and all that kind of stuff. But that was because they turned the lights on, and all of a sudden people were like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're back at this show. Yay, let's have fun. Now, my big issue, the biggest issue of the entire weekend for me, is the amount of people who won't get off their knees for Triple H. This has become a huge, like, the Hall of Fame. Paul Heyman really put over Triple H. I get what TKO and Nick Khan and all these guys are trying to do. Triple H is not Vince. He's in no position to control anything. He's just happy to be there. He just wants to focus on the in-ring product. He doesn't care what venue you guys go to. He doesn't care what your marketing and all that kind of crap is. He just wants to book the shows and have control over talent and that kind of stuff. That's all. So Nick Khan has free reign over the rest of the shit. And the idea being, he's very easy to control. So we're going to put all this stuff on him. Have Paul Heyman talk about how great he is. Let's see CM Punk talk about how great he is. Let's have Triple H walk to the ring to open WrestleMania just so he can say the "Welcome to WrestleMania." Because they're gonna end up replacing Vince McMahon out of that thing, by the way. Because it's complete erasure of Vince. Erasure totally. Just complete and totally erasure. Not even any voiceovers. They don't even have his voice on stuff anymore. And that's whatever. But the amount of slurpage for a Triple H is honestly, it makes me jealous. Like, I'm pretty sure Ron Jeremy didn't get as many blowjobs as Triple H did this weekend. Especially from like men, like Paul Heyman and Punk. I'm like, ugh, what the hell are you guys? What the hell is going on here? What are you trying to say? Like, Paul is a perfect huckster. All right. This is a guy who conned Vince McMahon Sr. He conned Dusty Rhodes. He conned Vince, Emperor Vince. He knows how to get what he wants out of people. He's a great ass kisser. So when he went up there and turned his Hall of Fame speech into a love-in for Triple H, I was like, I'm looking at this thing and saying, Paul Heyman is gunning for that seat if Triple H doesn't wake up tomorrow. If Triple H doesn't wake up tomorrow, everybody's going to be like, oh, let's just give it to Paul. Because when you look at things, Roman is putting over Paul and Punk is putting over Paul. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, Paul's a genius. Paul's so smart. Paul's the guy. Yeah. All he's got to do is not outshine the master. See, Stephanie was up to Paul's gimmick. And Stephanie looked fantastic at the Hall of Fame, by the way. She looked great. And she looked very refreshed. Okay, like she was really enjoying her time off. But Vince and Stephanie, they were up to Paul's game. They knew what Paul was doing, and there was enough people around Vince that Paul couldn't blow a lot of smoke up his ass. A lot of the glad handing, a lot of that stuff. Paul couldn't really get too close. He got kept at arm's length. But Triple H, they're playing that ego boy. He's rubbing elbows with Triple H. He is the best leader for our locker room. He leads us. What a tremendous man. I love Paul Levesque. I am a Paul Levesque guy. Oh, okay. All right. I saw clips of Paul's Hall of Fame speech. It was powerful as usual. This is exactly what I expected. But the amount of slurpage for Triple H is... They're now calling it the Triple H era, which is awful. Don't call it that. The weird thing is everybody calls Vince like a tyrant and, all this kind of stuff. But for the last maybe 15 to 20 years, Vince would always say, I don't want any of the credit. Go up there and talk about the Hall of Fame, talk about your career, talk about your family and your friends and all that kind of stuff. But don't mention me. Don't talk about me. Triple H is letting people go up there and talk about him, blow smoke up his ass. They're on commentaries constantly talking about him. I'm just like... I no doubt they probably prefer Triple H to Vince. Again, Triple H is easier to manipulate. He doesn't have the godlike authority that Vince McMahon had to kill careers or kill pushes or something like that. You always could play to people higher than Triple H. So he's got to play ball. So he's going to be nice. He's going to be much nicer because he has people above him. Vince didn't have that. You couldn't run roughshod over Vince. You could always appeal to Nick Khan or somebody like that. And a lot of these guys who are blowing smoke up Triple H's ass, they are friends of Nick Khan, like CM Punk, for instance. It was mentioned in the Ariel Helwani interview that he was repped by CAA, which is the company that Nick Khan used to work for. So it's all coming together, with the it's all coming together. You see that nepotism, You see it growing, right? But that's what it seems like to me, is they're blowing smoke up Triple H's ass. They're calling it the Triple H era. And I'm like, that's no. Just call it the TKO era. Because they wanted to call it the Renaissance era, but then Cody went and trademarked it. Cody was like, we're going to call this the Renaissance era. Then behind everybody's back, he went and filed for the trademark like a classic politician. He went, and then they were like, well, we got to call it the Triple H. I'm like, no, it's the TKO era, because Triple H is replaceable. You can replace him. He's the Scott D'Amore of this locker room. That's all. Tomorrow, they could decide they don't want Triple H anymore and get rid of him. So it's not his era. It's the TKO group. It's the McMahon era, I guess you could say. And then there's these subsections of like pre-WrestleMania, the WWF, then the WWF pre-WrestleMania, and then the WWF, the Golden Era, which includes like WrestleMania and all that kind of stuff, up to the New Generation, then the Attitude Era, then the Ruthless Aggression Era, then maybe PG, as that's what people will call it, up to now to what they call TKO. Okay, but the Triple H era, massive slurpage. No, there was no Vince McMahon era, because both of them were basically Vince McMahon. So it was defined by the talent. It was defined by the fan base, not by who the ownership was, because the owners were pretty obvious, but by the presentation and how the product had changed or evolved in some way. What they're doing is basically not much different than what Vince was doing. They're utilizing better camera work, that's for sure, and strategic blood, and strategic cursing, which is again stuff they did able to do under Vince. Which takes me back to Paul Heyman's interview, or his his Hall of Fame speech, where he was talking about new stars being made right in front of your eyes. And I'm trying to say, like, who? Everybody in this WrestleMania was signed by Vince McMahon. Everybody. Roman, The Rock, Cody. He flew to Cody's house to personally re-sign him for this run that Cody's been on. Of course, he's been a huge fan of Roman, and of course, he loved The Rock. Seth Rollins might be the only guy in this whole main event situation that is a Triple H guy. And that's not to say that Vince didn't even like Seth Rollins. He loved Seth Rollins. So it's like, what new stars have Triple H made? None. All of these guys, the Intercontinental Champion, he was there when Vince was there. Vince made Sami Zayn Intercontinental Champion the first 3 times he was the Intercontinental Champion. Vince made Gunther the Intercontinental Champion. Vince was all in on Logan Paul too. Like, who's the new stars that Triple H has made right in front of my eyes? I'm looking. Who is it? I'm looking. There's one. It's like Io Shirai, who wouldn't even be in the company if it wasn't for Triple H. She'd probably be back in Japan, hanging out in the crowd in NXT again. Maybe. Or maybe she'd be doing jobs in AEW or Ring of Honor, which would even be a waste of her time and talent. But that's pretty much the only one. Everybody else from Bayley on down was somebody that Vince was already pushing. And this is kind of what's blowing my mind, is all the slurping that they're doing for Triple H. I'm not seeing that it's that different. He's just using the same pieces differently. All right? That's really all. It's no new stars being made. Vince was pushing Damian Priest and Finn Balor and Judgment Day and Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch and all of them. None of this stuff is different. The people that Triple H has had control over, that Vince did not have any control over, look at what he's doing with them. He left Braun Breaker off the show, left Tiffany Stratton off the show. A bunch of Creed brothers, they got thrown in that bullshit Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, where I didn't even see him get eliminated. He's had opportunities to push new talent. Look what he did with Dragon Lee, for God's sake. Screwed him out of a WrestleMania match and then booked him for it, told everybody he was going to be in it, and then took him out of it. I mean, what new stars have been made, formed right in front of our eyes? I don't know. But whatever they're doing, and I think it's just it being a fresh approach to the product. things being a little bit looser so that these guys like Drew McIntyre can do more. And, of course, The Rock coming back helps quite a bit. It's working. So I'm not one to argue with success. So what Triple H is doing, it's been working. But I personally am not a huge fan of it. Because I look at this thing and I see that he's making sure that Johnny Gargano and Ciampa get on WrestleMania. And Sami Zayn was the Intercontinental Championship again. Instead of making a new star, which I heard he was trying to do, he's making new stars. Well, Chad Gable was standing right there. And then you force-fed us Chad Gable for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Just to, okay, now I'm going to stop randomly. I'm done. I'm not going to push him anymore. And then everybody's looking around and got people pissed off at Sami Zayn for no reason when he didn't book himself into this situation. And it's because Triple H gave up. And now he's going to have to double back. He's got to pivot again instead of just going through with whatever he planned in the first place. But the amount of Triple H slurping is very concerning. And it seems like he's being set up for something. It sounds like he's going to get set up to get knifed or something like that so Paul can get his job. But ultimately, I didn't talk about how I felt about WrestleMania as a show. As a show, it was fine. It didn't feel like WrestleMania. There was not a lot of pomp and circumstance. There was not a lot of big entrances. The first person to get pyro for their entrance, I think Rhea Ripley got fire. But I think that was it. And then it was Cody. And then Roman didn't even get a big entrance. Now, maybe they'll have a big entrance on night 2, but, very few people got big entrances. Very few people got, like, pyro and, a lot of what makes WrestleMania feel different. The celebrity involvement was very, very minimal. And it didn't feel like WrestleMania. It felt like it looked like WrestleMania, but it didn't feel like it. It's hard to say why, but I did like the usage of the video packages, to tell the stories of the matches, because that's all we've ever wanted is for people to be caught up. Everybody looked like they had fun. The crowd didn't react as much as they probably should have. And I think part of that was they were strictly into The Rock and the main events and stuff like that because of how much time has been dedicated to it. And there was not a lot of time dedicated to, let's say, the ladder match or Andrade and, and all these people. But there was a lot of time given to The Rock and Cody and all of them. So that's what they cared about. And that's what they spent most of their time reacting to. And even Jimmy and Jay felt like it was thrown together at the last minute. When you don't make things feel like it's well planned out, people will react like, okay, this might be interesting, but it doesn't look like something that you put a lot of thought into. So they don't put a lot of thought into it. All right, so that's night 1 of WrestleMania. Thank you, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.